Hi, I'm here with Mads Davidsen, who is a football enthusiast and currently the manager of Ebbe Sand's football academy in China. Mads, tell me about running a football academy in China. In terms of that, how was the process from idea to implementation?
Hi Kenneth, thank you very much for letting me participate here. To build up a football academy in China is not easy. We've been through a lot of different problems and challenging, but in general we started up in August with 0 players, and right now we are training 70 players every week. So we are satisfied with the results so far, but there has been some tough times, and you need to understand the Chinese market. You need to understand the Chinese system, how the government is an extremely important factor in running businesses in China, and you need to understand the Chinese parent as well, how they think about football, how they think about sports in general. So that's been some of our problems so far.
Perfect. What about the general passion for football and the level of football talents in China?
The passion is definitely there. The stadiums are filled to the China Super League games. On Weibo, the Chinese Facebook site, there's a lot of football discussions, and then people really admire football, and Premier League and Bundesliga is very popular out here on TV. So the desire is there, but the Chinese is actually a little bit embarrassed about their own way of soccer, their own performances. They don't think they got the physical aspect of the game, and they don't think they have the tactical aspect of the game. And with my nine months of experience, I can only agree with them. They lack especially the tactical part of the game, but they also lack some very simple technical part of the game, which is caused by bad training, uneducated coaches, and what we should call conservative, hard discipline, focusing on fear. It's actually a philosophy based on fear. So they lack the most important thing in offense football: creativity.
Yeah, of course. In terms of all this, you're talking about the structure of football in China. What is your impression of the structure and also the economics of football in China?
Well, that's a funny discussion, because the structure is almost non-existing, but the money is huge. For example, the players in the China Super League games, they are paid much more in the Danish Super League in general. So the money is here, and the people are here to build it up. But the knowledge about structure, and especially the youth system, is horrible. That there exists no U19 league, U17 league, U15 league as we know it in Scandinavia and in Europe. So it's actually it's built up by school teams, where you play at your school. You don't play at a club. You play at your school, and then you participate in a big school tournament, where first you play against your local schools in the neighborhood, and then you play against the district schools, and then in the end you qualify for the Chinese national games, and you will play against other schools all over China. So that is basically the model.
Okay.
And that's a problem, because that means that the school teachers are also the football coach. So the school teacher is a guy who could also teach in math or teach in history, and then at the same time he's a football coach, and he is responsible for the best talents in the country. So that's a big issue for China if they want to develop more top players.
Yeah. So is it because the football association out there that they lack knowledge, or simply because they are invisible?
I would say both, but definitely they lack knowledge. There has been some steps the right way. The last 6 months, they have hired a former Ajax coach for the Chinese U19 national team, and they hired a guy from Japan who built up the Japanese system, also to do the same here in China with grassroots football, and with focusing on youth training. So there are some steps the right way, but it's really a long road. And the problem is also due to logistics. The country is too big to control everything in football, and that's why they have big problems out here.
What are your future plans regarding the academy?
Well, we hope right now we have, as I mentioned before, we have 70 players. We hope to bring it up around 100, 150 players. Then in time be able to pick more. Right now we are saying yes to almost everybody. So we hope in time to be able to pick more. So we in the end have 100, 150 elite players. And then we would like to structure a league here in the Shanghai area. We would like to structure a elite league where we play against other elite teams, because there are quite a few good school teams around here. But the problem is to set it up, to find the right people to talk to. So when it all comes down to what is called guangxi in Chinese, which means network.
Okay. So the Chinese, you saying that they are pretty relationship based, but you're also talking about the Chinese Super League before, and the fact that salaries there are higher than in the Danish Super League. What about the overall quality of play in the Chinese Super League?
The Chinese Super League is in general lower than the Danish Super League in terms of performance, but it's a very physical league, so it's difficult to compare. It's very, very physical. A lot of free kicks, a lot of hard tackles, especially sliding tackles is extremely popular out here. So in that way, it's difficult to compare to Denmark, where it's more focused on the technical part of the game. But I think that there are some quite good teams. For example, the Chinese champions Guangzhou Evergrande, who has the former Italy World Cup winner Marcello Lippi as a coach. Very, very good team. Play modern football. We also have 3 or 4 other teams in the league who play what we in Denmark would call modern football, with focusing on the offensive part, focusing on structure, focusing on good organization. And then the rich clubs, they buy creativity. I haven't seen any Chinese play with creativity, so they basically just buy 3 or 4 foreigners and to play them in the first in the starting 11 at the offensive positions. That's their model. Build it up by 7 or 8 Chinese teams players in the defense part of the field, and then by 3 or 4 foreigners to the offensive part. That's how it works for example, Guangzhou Evergrande.
Okay. I saw that David Beckham became an ambassador for the Chinese Super League. What is your meaning about that?
Well, I think it's a good gesture from him personally, but I think the idea in general shows the wrong focus in China, that they think that bring a superstar here is going to change nothing, because David Beckham has absolutely no knowledge about Chinese football or China. So what can he do, basically? I know his face can sell some tickets, maybe.
Yeah.
But in general, I mean, it has probably cost, let's say, 100 million RMB, which is the same as 100 million Danish kroner, to bring David Beckham out here. And let's assume what we could have done with that in youth football, 100 million. But you also need to understand, to do business in China is extremely important to have a face. Every business out here have a face. I can mention, for example, the Danish Bang & Olufsen. They hired Jackie Chan as their face in China, because if you don't have a famous face connected to your brand, it's almost impossible to run a good business. And that's of course also why we named Ebbe Sand Soccer Academy after the former Schalke player Ebbe Sand, who is very, very popular out here. The Bundesliga is quite big out here.
Okay. How do you see Chinese football evolve in the future?
I see some steps in the right way. For example, Guangzhou Evergrande, which I mentioned before, just opened the biggest academy in China, with 3,500 players coming in, and also Beijing Guan has a solid youth academy. So we see some steps in the right way. We also see more focus on grassroots football. We see more and more schools build AstroTurf pitches. Because one of the problems is definitely also facilities. That where should they play? Now I live downtown Shanghai, and I haven't seen a tree or a pitch in 6 months. So the problem is also where to play. As you probably know, much of development in football is also when you play with yourself, to reach to reach the top level to train with yourself, get the extra hours on the grass pitch at home. But there are no grass pitches out here, so that's also a big issue. But the government has done some move in the right direction, and the new president out here, Xi Jinping, is a big football fan, and it can sound funny to us in Europe, but we would probably not care about the prime minister being a football fan, but it's actually very important out here because it means that all big cities, all big districts will do everything to please the chairman, as they call him. So when he's interested in football, a lot of towns and districts would like to hire the football standards to get basically more money from the government.
Awesome. It's very interesting to hear about your academy out there and also about the development of Chinese football. So thank you very much for participating, Mads.
Thank you for letting me, Kenneth.